Number 10. Blickling Hall. The birthplace of Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII, and for certain not the last. He had a few after her. Unfortunately for the young lass, she wouldn't last too long, and after failing to give her husband a male heir to the throne, their marriage fell apart. It's a classic story in all medieval marriages, how it goes. And like all marriages that fall apart, there was no saving it. Go ahead, try, I dare you. And when King Henry couldn't get the divorce he so desired, he convicted her of adultery and other crimes, where soon after she was beheaded. Ooh, scandalous. It's said that on the ground of Blickling Hall her ghost remains, headless, aimlessly wandering the halls. Oh dear. Number 9. Himeji Castle. All the way in the beautiful land of Japan, where cherry blossoms bloom and blow. Atop the Hyogo Prefecture sits the beautiful Himeji Castle. Ooh. While it stands like a monument to feudal Japan architecture, she holds a deep dark tale. A servant of the castle named Okiku. She had been blamed for breaking some good dishes, like the same kind of good china my mom said not to touch, but I always wondered what the heck's the point of having them anyway if we're not going to use them, Mom. Well, she was so distraught that she manually checked out of life. Ooh. When the guards found her in the kitchen, they dumped her down the well, as you do. Just procedure back then, I guess. It is said that she still haunts the castle today and can be heard counting the dishes she was accused of breaking, followed by sobbing and shrieking. No thanks. I don't know if you guys know, I don't like horror stuff, I don't like ghosts. Nope, not going, sorry. Number 8. Frankenstein's Castle. Yes, that's right, the castle that inspired Mary Shelley's horror masterpiece, or so I'm told. I use Cliff Notes. It's a great story, but kind of a tough read in my opinion. Yeah, I use Cliff Notes, it's pretty rough. The actual real-life castle is thought to be haunted by a man named Johann Conrad Dippel. Besides that name being very scary, the castle has many dark secrets. Dippel had this weird thing where he was a mad scientist, very similar to Dr. Frankenstein in the book. His ultimate science goal, like something out of Call of Duty Zombies, was to raise the dead and reanimate the life. Yes, come back to life, my pretties. Oh yes, oh yes. I don't know, that's I imagine he sounds like, I have no idea. To do this, he would seek out the freshly deceased and bring their body parts back to conduct not so family friendly experiments. After achieving his goal, he thought he would discover the secret to immortality. Now, after he drank one of his own experimental potions and elixirs, whatever you want to call that, he shortly passed away. Today it's said that his spirit can still be seen on the roof, watching over the other spirits of the graves that he disturbed. Yes, my little pretties, yes! Number 7. H.H. Holmes. While not a castle in the stone and brick sense, this place is certainly big enough to be a castle and has lots of trap doors like a castle. And there's a really weird guy who's bloodthirsty that owns the building like a castle and a king, so yeah, it checks out. H.H. Holmes was the owner of the often called Red Rum Castle. That's backwards for Murder Castle. Basically, it was a very large hotel that he fitted to his bloodthirsty needs. Trapdoors, hidden staircases, and areas allowing him to sneak about and take his victims down to the basement where they would await a most painful destruction. While the building is gone now, after Holmes was gone when the building was still there, many of his victims still roamed the halls. He confessed to 27 of those disappearances. Though some suspect it's higher and some suspect he doesn't classify as a serial unalifer, even though I don't know why, because 27 not a big enough number for you? Doesn't make any sense. Or is that H.H. Holmes saying that himself? Number 6, Dracula's Castle. I don't know, that's what the vampire sounds like. A lot of impressions today. Vlad the Impaler was an awful and evil tyrant from the late 1400s who defended Castle Bran against his enemies and did so quite horrifically. However, it goes beyond that. Never shy to use violence to get his point, his point across, he was a ghoulish figure who was thought to be a vampire himself. They might have been right, he was pretty weird. Yes, he was the basis for Count Dracula. Dracula might be scary, but he's got nothing on this guy. Vlad was known to impale people alive on spikes and logs that were, spike-like, and leave them to slowly perish away on full display. It's said that the bloodthirsty vampire can still be found lurking the halls of his old castle. I dare you to come in. Number 5, Castle Loma. For those that don't live in Canada or have never been to Toronto, there's a castle in the middle of the city. Yes, it's a real castle, and yes, I realize how that sounds, but there's a castle in the middle of the city. I don't know. Constructed in 1914 by Sir Henry Pellet for him and his wife. It cost him a fortune. Ooh, I forgot to put the number in it. I believe it was $1 million. That was a lot of money back then. Anyway, but it seems from the very start it was strange. For one, this architecture was outdated, even back then. Of course it was outdated, it was hundreds of years ago. Its massive size and what happened shortly after. This is not the case of a man who lived here all his life and passed, because he was forced to leave the home just a few short years later due to financial losses. However, today you might be able to find the White Lady ghost, as seen on the second floor and most recently in the basement. Now, the running theory is that she was one of the many servants who perished from influenza during the time, and if there's anything we know, it's that floating lady ghosts wearing white are the spookiest. Am I wrong? No, I'm not. That's science. I know it is. I'm a scientist. They'll put a beaker beside me, that's how you know. I'm a scientist, yep. Number 4, Edinburgh Castle. Oh hey, what time I'll bust this one out again nicer. Eilean, Edinburgh, Scotland, and a most beautiful castle. I'll stop doing that. She's been there for hundreds of years and statistically speaking is one of the most attacked places on planet Earth, with a total of 26 over a span of a few hundred years. Apparently that was enough to make it haunted. What's more interesting than that is a young lad who was tasked with seeing where a newly discovered tunnel led to. To make sure he didn't get lost, he took his bagpipes with him and was instructed to play so people above could tell where he was and what progress he was making. At first things were going great. He made his way into the tunnel and the people above could hear him playing. This was followed by a sudden and immediate stop. Ooh, horror. At first folks were too scared of going after him and see what became of the red-haired lad who played the pipes. When the courage was mustered to see what actually happened, there wasn't a single trace of him. Not even the pipes, sir. Nothing left. That's so sad. Poor pipe playing boy. I was so sad for him. Number 3, Winchester Mansion. I'm not personally sure how haunting works or ghosts or like the great beyond works. I might be Canadian, but I'm certainly no Dan Aykroyd or Ghostbuster. I just don't know. The Winchester Manor is quite the peculiar case. It belonged to the Winchester family of Wild West fame, the very same who supplied the big irons for every coach in America. When Mr. Winchester had passed, the family fortune and estate was left to his wife, Sarah Winchester. Now, what may have started as a large home and mansion over time became a castle. Seriously, look at this thing, it's crazy. Sarah had add-on after add-on added to the mansion. After a while, these add-ons got stranger and stranger. Staircases that led nowhere, trap doors, doors that led to large falls, and some doors that just led to nowhere. It's very weird. Why all these strange things? Well, that's because she claimed that the lives her husband's work had taken were haunting the castle and she had to build them to deter the ghosts that haunted her. Boy, that's insanity right there. That's just craziness. Number 2, Huska Castle. While we don't have an official name for our sixth sense, some people just have that extra spidey sense. I know I don't. Like when a Nigerian prince sends you an email asking for your help. Sounds pretty sus. But more interesting than that is animals. I swear I've seen my household cat act different in a thunderstorm. They just know. Or cows that lay down right before it rains. It's weird, how do they know that? They don't have TV or a meteorologist to tell them it's gonna rain, so how do you know? Well, it just makes sense because on the walls of Huska Castle in Czech Republic, animals won't go near it. Legend has it that it's the gate to hell, and a dragon was even spotted there one time. Well, if that's not your favorite kind of ghost story, there's more. During World War II, Germans took over the castle and used it as a base to conduct only the kind of experiments German scientists could do without adult supervision. To this day, it's recommended to stay away as you don't know what dark spirits may be lurking. Number 1, Leap Castle, Ireland. This bad boy dates back all the way to the 1200s and was under constant siege as castles were known to be for the time period. It's kind of the reason why they were built. As this castle hosts a few creatures of the evening. One supposedly is a priest that perished in one of the many sieges and seeks his bloodthirsty revenge on those who come near the chapel. Won't catch me there. Another is a foul beast called It. Possibly related to the Stephen King one, I'm not sure. No one is completely sure of its origin, but it's said you will smell its rotting flesh before you even see it. And lastly, most disturbingly, is a mother who waits in the ruins of the castle wielding a blade, ready to take revenge on those who stole her kin away. Because like I said, ladies in dresses and floating, that's the scariest. I don't like that. No thank you.
Number 10. Snake Island. Located 95 miles off the coast of Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Snake Island. It makes you ask yourself, is that just a name or are there like thousands of snakes occupying the land? Well, both. What happened originally was thousands of years ago, the part of the land that once connected the island to mainland kind of disappeared. Over time, the ocean rose up, but the snakes had no idea because they're snakes. Yeah, they weren't really paying attention, it seems. Before any of these snakes got time to pack their bags, these snakes were stuck on the island, and decade after decade, that number only got bigger. One of the deadliest snakes in the world too, the golden lancehead viper. Oof. Yeah, there's over 4,000 of them on this island. From 1902 to the early 1920s, a few brave souls lived there and operated the lighthouse. But according to some local myths, the last lighthouse keeper was swarmed by snakes after he left a window open. I'm not sure if that's a real story or not, but I believe it after seeing all these photos. Yeah, that's scary. I don't like that. I don't like snakes. Number 9, Heard Island. Have you heard of this island? Right in the middle of Antarctica and Australia is this tiny little island. The Australian government has made it illegal for anybody to visit this island, so if you have some free time, a kayak and suntan lotion, yeah, don't even think about it. Why is this island forbidden though? Is this the one full of deadly snakes? The myth surrounding Heard Island is that it's occupied with animals that we don't know even exist. One of a kind. Oh yeah, just like Snake Island, only other fantastic beasts. We got some secret hybrids going on. Is this Jurassic Park in real life? Like, it feels like it's Jurassic Park in real life. The island looks pretty similar too. The island itself is quite unique geographically. Heard Island is home to 2 volcanoes and the tallest mountain in Australia, so there's plenty of space for hybrid animals to hide and look menacing in, you know? I love the idea of animals getting their own island though. 1 point for Gryffindor. Like, we have enough. Time to give back, you know? Except for the Snake Island, yeah. That one can go. Number 8, North Brother Island. Oh, brother. Located right between Rikers Island and the Bronx. The Bronx! Quietly tucked away on the East River, this one is much smaller than the last 2. North Brother Island was once home to a hospital back in the day, and you may be thinking, a hospital on an island? Yeah, this feels haunted already, Kyle. Yep, it is. For sure. Also, hospital on an island, how inconvenient is that? Like, I just broke my rib. Let's get on this rowboat and go check it out. Riverside Hospital was available for patients suffering from yellow fever, smallpox, tuberculosis, and it was mainly a quarantine zone. The hospital has since been abandoned. It's now sitting there just kind of falling apart, yet for some reason the island has been quite active. A body was found on the island, and a steamship called the General Slocum crashed on the island. There's a haunted lighthouse on the island, and they even have what's referred to as Coffin Corner. Sorry, Coffin Corner? Yeah, I'm all set, thanks. Dude, I'd rather explore the Bronx in the middle of the night than explore this island, like, at any time, you know? Number 7, Roanoke Island, North Carolina. Just off the coast of what is now North Carolina, back in August 1587, around 100 English settlers arrived to what was then Roanoke Island. John White, governor of the new colony, had to sail back to England to grab supplies. The 1500s, huh? Just must have been exhausting. While he was away, a naval war broke out between England and Spain, so his commute was a little delayed, and he got back 3 years later in 1590 with said supplies. Hey, sorry I'm late, folks. Yeah, there was just a little small naval war. Had to grab some supplies for numerous years of my life. Upon arrival, however, nobody was there. His wife, daughter, granddaughter, among the 100 or so inhabitants, all vanished. The only hint as to where they went or what happened was the word Croatoan carved into a wooden post and crow carved onto a tree. Croatoan was the name of the First Nations band that lived on the island as well. But after looking for evidence, theories, even archaeological exploration, experts still can't figure this one out. Yeah, Taylor's actually been to this island. Yeah, he said the winds were lovely. I don't know where that ties in, but. Number 6, Falkland Islands, United Kingdom. Back in August 1980, a Royal Marine Alan Addis was seen for the very last time. On August 8th, Addis and a bunch of other Marines met up in the village hall, where there were about 50 locals there as well. It was a social night. The Marines left in groups at different times throughout the evening, but until 1:30 a.m., Addis was still there. People saw him. The next morning, all the Marines left to head back to base, but after sailing for 30 minutes, they realized Addis was missing. They called his mother and said that he was missing, but the next day, they told her that he actually might have drowned. Accidentally, of course. The sea and air search was underway shortly after, and after a few weeks, they looked and couldn't find anything. The following year in April, Argentine forces invaded the islands. This was known as the Falklands War, and during this time, the police files on Addis' disappearance were all lost. We think that they were deliberately destroyed to avoid British military deployment information being leaked into the Argentine hands. What do you think? Number 5, Poveglia Island, Italy. The small island of Poveglia has taken many lives, unfortunately. When the bubonic plague arrived there in 1348, the island had become a quarantine colony. So if you had symptoms, you were sent to this island to die. Unfortunately, it was horrible. Then again, in 1630, the Black Death crept in, and once again, the center of the island became a mass graveyard. The soil is 50% human remains at this point. If its dark history doesn't scare you away, the ghost stories surrounding the island just may do the trick. In the early 20th century, mentally ill patients were sent to this island, but the doctor that was responsible for treatments, well, he himself was a little mad. He would try bizarre methods, cruel experiments, unethical treatments, you name it. The doctor himself ended up going downhill mentally, and he jumped to his death from the bell tower. Apparently the bell tower no longer stands, but the soil is still 50% remains, so either way, yeah, it's a giant no from me. Too much bad history in every kind of way, you know what I mean? I don't want to visit. Number 4, Robin's Island. Forbidden, but for reasons you might not have guessed. I figured I'd liven up the mood a little bit, so let's talk about the privately owned Robin's Island. For starters, it's absolutely massive, and she's beautiful. It's not made of lava or snakes, just normal sand and trees. The best part of it all? No humans allowed. Yeah, aliens are like, yes! The 435-acre island sits off the coast of New Suffolk, New York. Many names have come and go when it comes to this island ownership, but as of right now, it's a forbidden nature preserve. The owner is a man named Louis Bacon. Even his name loves animals too. Louis Bacon has poured time and money into building this sanctuary and fears that if anybody else gets involved, the whole thing is gonna fall apart. Fair enough. Aside from that side quest Mr. Bacon is pulling off, Robin's Island is home to the largest population of turtles in the state. Yeah, fun fact. So don't worry, he's not really alone. Number 3, Eilean Mor Scotland. Ah yes, Scotland. Since we're on the topics of islands without any human interaction, let's mention this wee lad, shall we? What better island to visit than one with nobody on it, huh? Don't mind the sea curse. If the lighthouse didn't scare you, maybe you can manage this one. In 1901, a ship was headed towards the Flannan Islands, completely uninhabited, and on this ship we had one Captain James Harvey and one Joseph Moore. They were both heading to the island to watch the lighthouse, but upon arrival, nobody was there to greet them. Usually the lads, before they were ready to go, haven't been counting down the days and all, they blew the horn, waited, and still nobody. The keepers rowed to shore and started walking up the steep set of stairs towards the lighthouse. When they got there, they realized the door was unlocked and 2 of the 3 coats were missing. Upon further investigation, he saw half-eaten food, a chair that had been tipped over, and the kitchen clock had stopped working. Still, no sign of the keepers. When checking the lighthouse log, however, the previous days were a little odd. December 12th, the second assistant, Thomas Marshall, wrote, quote, "Severe winds, the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. James was awfully quiet, and William, the 3rd lad, was crying the whole time." End quote. Yeah, there's some sinister vibes there for sure. Like, this is like The Lighthouse the movie, but like in real life, you know? Terrifying. No thank you. I wouldn't stay in any lighthouse, let alone this one. Number 2, Easton Beach, Rhode Island. Back in 1750, the Seabird, this big beautiful ship, slowly arrived and washed up on the shore of Easton's Beach. There was a big breakfast waiting on the table of the ship, the kettle was boiling on the stove, but there was no sign of the crew anywhere. Just an empty ship washed up along the shore. Creepy. Unlike the lighthouse, everything looked fine. No chairs tipped over, no frozen clocks, no signs of violence. It was oddly the opposite. What makes this story more creepy is that after the cargo was unloaded, the Seabird itself vanished overnight. Some believe the forces of the island took the crew, then soon after took the Seabird. What are your thoughts? And number 1, Garbage Island. We must finish on this one, right? Come on. Perhaps one of the largest islands of them all, too. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's located in the North Pacific subtropics. Here's basically 4 of these large systems just swirling around ocean currents, and some of them are chock full of garbage. Yeah, it's pretty disturbing. I've heard of the garbage patch before, but I had no idea how large it was. You know what I mean? The thing actually turned into Garbage Island. It's graduated. This trash island is 3 times the size of France, or twice the size of Texas. It's big. This island is man-made, obviously, and it continues to grow. It's not all grim, however. There's a team working on reducing that size right now. The environmental nonprofit Ocean Cleanup has removed over 80,000 pounds of trash. I'm gonna end on a good note, you know what I mean? That's a good one.
Kicking off our list at number 10, a cursed phone number. The song 867-5309/Jenny has been stuck in my head for about 18 years now. It's a classic. That song is a banger. Great jingle too. Imagine if a pizza place figured that number out first. Would have been game over. A cursed phone number. What are we talking about here? This phone number, apparently cursed, is 359-888 and then a bunch of 8s afterwards, okay? What's the deal here? Anybody who's had this phone number in the last 20 years or so, apparently they've all met their fate in a weird way. CEO of a Bulgarian phone company, he got cancer at 48. And then 2 criminals later on, both of their deaths were a little bit more mysterious than cancer. All these deaths that happened were within 4 years of each other. That's the, curse aspect of it all. The phone number was suspended, so nobody's able to use it now. Maybe it was a cursed number, or maybe the number had ties to crime. 867-5309 is still stuck in my head. Number 9. The organ. Music is said to bring life into the room, but this time it's a bit too literal for my liking. There is a real organ in the Occult Museum. This belonged to Ed and Lorraine Warren for quite a while, the paranormal investigators. Of course, all these things are found in a haunted house. In one way or another, it's haunted or cursed, as are all these in this list. This organ apparently would play by itself throughout the night. In total, there were 3 different incidents where Ed thought somebody had broken into the museum because he heard the organ being played, but by the time he arrived in a panic, the room was empty. Classic. Nothing had been touched, there was no visitors. Of course, it was just a cursed piano. Nice. A priest then came to bless the museum and the music eventually stopped. But before her passing, Lorraine Warren said to USA Today that the prayers do work, and they blind the evil much like an electric fence does for a dog. Number 8. Photograph of Bathsheba Sherman. You always see these videos of UFOs and they're filmed with like a BlackBerry curve. It's just rubbish, it's horrible quality. There's never clear evidence of anything nowadays, right? But we may just have a clear photo with the real Bathsheba Sherman, the witch in the original Conjuring film, that real person in real life. Yeah, we have a real photo of a real witch. This is crazy. This photo is from the Perrin family farmhouse back when it was still the Arnold estate. This was 1885, so the witch was most likely in her 70s at this time, and this witch lived next door to said farm, and although we'll never really know for sure, many believe she's the lady in the middle closest to the camera. Also, the fact that she's wearing some sort of mask and she's standing by herself and looks like a witch, I don't know, definitely her, most definitely her. I feel like nobody wants to stand next to a literal witch, you know? It's like a big radius around her. That's how you know it's her. Imagine doing a silly one with Bathsheba Sherman. You're like, hey, bunny ears, don't curse me. Number 7, the Pisano vase. This vase comes from the 15th century. It was made for an excellent wedding gift, but the night before, the bride sadly lost her life with the vase still in her hands, so a lot of questions, right? The family of course kept it afterwards, but as the vase was passed down the family line, a pattern began to unveil itself. Whomever held possession of the Pisano vase died shortly after in a weird way. Now keep in mind, this was the 15th century, okay? The average lifespan was already 30 to 40 years old. But after this many deaths in the family, it was packed away for good, okay? Or so they thought. This vase showed up again in history in 1988 alongside a single note. The note was pretty to the point. It said, "Beware, this vase brings death." End of note. Whoever found it was like, okay. And then continued on with it. Yeah, they kept the vase, didn't heed the warning, and then it was auctioned for over $2,000 sans note. Yeah, the pharmacist who won the auction, well, you guessed it, they passed away within months. Number 6, ghost boots. These boots are made for haunting, and that's just what they'll do. Yeah, I put a pair of boots on this list. That's where we're at now. Let's do it. This is a photo of a young lady and it may look like a classic family trip, but upon closer inspection, it seems like somebody is standing behind her. Now, of course, tracing this photo back to its origins, her father said nobody was behind her at this time, that it was taken, because that would be pretty weird, right? Hey, stand right here in an open field, thanks. Hey, can you move please? There's an open field. Thanks. You know, it's a little weird. This shot was taken at Zushi Kanagawa in Japan. You can see boots and what looks like clothing sticking out from behind her elbow. Father said, I took a few photos. When I was looking through them at night, I noticed the boots behind her. I took several in the same spot, but only one of these photos had the boots. Yeah, you always see that in movies, right? They're always going through these photos at night at like 2 a.m. Then they find something scary. It's never at Walmart in the middle of the day. You know what I mean? It's always scary in a dark kitchen. Ugh. What would you do? I would freak out. And he freaked out, obviously. He showed a friend, and then said friend posted it on Reddit, hence why we're here now. Haunted boots. The more you know. Number 5, the Anguished Man. Historical paintings are cool. I guess. I don't know. They're pretty interesting. But this is the first time I've read up on the Anguished Man myself, and I wish I didn't, to be honest. It's pretty unsettling. It's now considered one of the most haunted objects in the world, and it looks like the part 2. It looks like it's from a horror movie. This oil painting was created by, of course, an unknown artist, but the actual paint here used in the painting is mixed with blood, real blood. Their legit DNA is in this painting, whoever it is. Their blood, sweat, and tears. Great. Not much is known of the artist as they passed away shortly after, but the current owner is Sean Robinson from Cumbria, England. His grandmother had given him said painting. There wasn't much known beforehand. Maybe she just found it at an auction, whatever. But his grandmother did warn him that it was cursed. Yeah, here's some Werther's original, and also here's a cursed painting. Enjoy. Sean had to leave it in his basement at first because his wife wasn't on board. More than fair. I'd be like, no, can we not? Can we turn it around? Thanks. But when the basement randomly flooded, he had to move it upstairs at that point. which is already pretty creepy. Now after, the couple heard crying or screams or whispering, things you don't want to hear alone in a house with a haunted painting coming from the room with the painting. It got so bad Robinson uploaded time-lapse footage to YouTube in 2011, and it shows the door closing by itself next to the painting. Also, yeah, keep this in the basement or flood it, I don't care. I agree with the missus here. Number 4. Music box. We had to include one of the creepiest elements of the Conjuring movie because it's a real thing. Director James Wan wanted to use the music box in the first film because, you know, mirrors and creepy tones make for great suspense and all that jazz. But this was also a real haunted artifact from the real haunted house. Today the box is safely stored in the Warren's Occult Museum, like I mentioned before, just a fun house of scary that you should definitely never touch, alongside other items that look more or less normal, right? One of which is the real Annabelle doll. This part of the movie actually scared the shit out of me. Any mirror scene, I can't do it. I end up eating my hoodie. They always do it slow too. I hate movie scenes that include mirrors. But this is real life though, you can't forget that. This music box actually caused a lot of trouble for these poor girls. Specifically April, youngest of the Perrin family. She found this unique antique in the house and then she used it to communicate to another spirit. A spirit that just happened to be named Rory. Yeah, it's a great haunted name, Rory. Nice, it's not friendly at all. In the movie, this was a happy ending, whatever, but in real life, the Bathsheba Sherman case was never resolved. Number 3, the Hope Diamond Curse. Coming from the 1660s, here we go. This curse began when a gem dealer named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier bought this large diamond when visiting India. Or so he said, he bought it. The origins of the diamond were unknown, but it didn't matter. This beauty was just sitting there. Well, later on, after he got the diamond, rumors started spreading throughout Europe and the United States that Tavernier actually stole the diamond from a statue of a Hindu goddess. Yeah, that sounds a little more on the nose. That's a bit more accurate. A little different than his story, but sadly a little more believable. The newspapers actually kicked this one off by publishing the Hope Diamond as an ancient curse. That ought to help, right? That spreads the word, I guess. The diamond at one point ended up in the hands of King Louis XVI and his wife, Marie Antoinette. Now, if you don't know about them, they were, they had some rough history happen with their heads being off their body and stuff. They lost their lives during the French Revolution, to say the least. The guillotine dream team, that's what we call them. The stone then went to Lord Francis Hope come 1839, and by that point it was deemed cursed. This is when it got the name the Hope Diamond, right? They ended up selling said diamond shortly after being reduced to poverty, and then Evelyn Welsh McLean bought the stone in 1912. Shortly after that, her son was killed in a car accident. When the stone was delivered to its final and current home, the Smithsonian, back in 1958, the driver who was delivering the package was later hit by a truck. Now he survived, but shortly after his house caught fire. Moral of the story, you don't need diamonds, for more reasons than one. Number 2, the Busby Stoop chair. Coming from 1702, 10 years after the Salem witch trials, so take this one with a grain of salt, people made odd choices back then, okay? Women were witches because they knew math, and chairs were evil. Welcome to 1702, good luck. Englishman Thomas Busby had some issues with his father-in-law. He didn't handle them well, so now he had to be hanged for it. Yeah, he can't commit crimes to resolve problems. It's not a good thing. Can't just kill people for no reason, Thomas. What is this, 1692? He was hanged near the Humble Inn, which is an ironic name, but a chair that was nearby is now said to hold the spirit of one Thomas Busby. If you sit on this chair, you are set to die in a frightful accident. So the chair was declared haunted, but did anything actually happen? Yeah, locals say during World War II, airmen from a nearby base came to the pub, and those who sat on it never returned. And then in the 70s, more accidents were connected, but they still kept it around until 1978. Yeah, it stayed in the inn for that long, until it was donated to the Thirsk Museum. It's not even a rocking chair either. It looks like it should be a rocking chair, but it's not a rocking chair. That's the scariest part in my opinion. You try and lean back, you're like, oh, I really thought it was gonna rock there. Damn, it's disappointing. And finally, number 1, a ghost caught in a photograph. Yeah, this one ought to end the list in a pretty bizarre way. Doesn't matter where or when, but odds are you've seen this photo at some point in your life. You know when you see a photo, sometimes you just get bad vibes, like it registers in your brain as something scary but also real. Like you want to find something that looks fake about this photo, but it's tough. This photo was taken inside the Amityville house in 1976. It's a young lad with glowing white eyes, kind of hard to miss. It was taken with automatic cameras equipped with infrared, and it makes it even creepier that the boy looks like he's peeking around the corner. Nice, just hiding from you in his invisible ghost land. land. We love it. A photographer named Gene Campbell took this photo, and Gene at the time was working with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken on the Merv Griffin show, and many believe this is the ghost of one John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there prior to that 1974 event. Yeah, we're still trying to figure this out. What do you guys think? Elaborate hoax, or perhaps this is one solid piece of evidence that the Amityville house is indeed haunted and ghosts are indeed real? Kicking off our list at number 10. Israel Cursed Tomb. Here we go, right off the hop. A secret tomb was discovered in Israel only a month ago. Now, this is the first time a tomb has been found at the UNESCO World Heritage Site in 65 years. Now, the actual cave itself was discovered only a year ago, but these smaller chambers are being found recently, as like a month ago recently. And the tomb found came along with a message. Awesome, we love those. It vows to curse anybody who would open the grave, and this message is also written in blood red, so yeah. Can we not open this one, maybe? Last time we had a black sarcophagus in Egypt, people were sticking their heads in for no reason, just to see what's up. And then, you know, a plague happened. So, number 9, Polish King Curse. Some of you may remember this, or your parents might so ask them about this at dinner. Yeah, make it weird tonight. Ask them about a Polish king curse tonight while you're eating food. Back in 1973, a team of archaeologists were jazzed when they uncovered an ancient 15th century tomb. The tomb of the Polish king at the time, King Casimir IV Jagiellon. Now, media was of course all over this discovery, as they should be. It was exciting. Now, everyone was of course making jokes about a curse. You kind of have to, right? We're all thinking about it. What if there's a curse? I don't know. Open it though, still. Some team members involved ended up dying after the discovery. It was a little odd. There were a few who said it was due to a curse, but the sudden illnesses were in fact caused by deadly fungi inside the tomb. So it still was the tomb's fault, but it wasn't a curse per se. It was breathed in, and that's what led to these researchers' untimely death. Number 8, King Tut's Curse. Here we go. Since we're on the topic of illnesses or curses, let's go back 50 more years, shall we? To the legendary discovery of King Tut's tomb in 1922. This discovery is what made everyone, so paranoid when that Polish king curse came out, right? This discovery and what followed is the main reason we believe in mummy curses today. One member of the expedition, George Herbert, passed away suddenly 6 weeks after they opened King Tut's chamber. It was not toxic mold, it wasn't a curse, but rather it was a mosquito bite on the cheek. He got blood poisoning from a mosquito bite, that's all it was. I mean, I'm sure digging up bodies from the past and opening the tombs up doesn't help karma in general, but it wasn't a curse written in red. Not this time. Number 7, a strange resting place. Ancient burial grounds. Okay, these tombs, they come in many different shapes and sizes. Some can be these massive Great Pyramids, and others can be a shallow cave system. Sometimes there's ancient history right below your feet, and you'd never know. In St. Augustine, for example, the remains of a donkey were found buried underground. And judging from the skull and the bones and the placement, something was afoot here. It had clearly been hunted down by humans and placed there purposefully. That's not the mysterious part at all. The mysterious part is that all the bones have been carefully separated and there's no marks to suggest that any tools were used. So researchers believe that this thing wasn't even used for food. So what was it? The limbs were placed to point north and south. That's it. They used this donkey as a compass. How rude is that? What? Donkeys in that area of Florida in the 17th century, that's not bizarre at all. But the way the bones were buried, north and south, that's very odd. That's very Game of Thronesy. You know what I'm saying? What's the message here? What's the point? What's the point? Besides north and south, of course. Number 6, Tortoise Tomb. Okay, somebody called Mario. We got a lot of shells to explain. Okay, pal? Back in 2005 in northern Israel, a tomb of a shaman, who we believe was a 45-year-old woman at the time of her passing, was found in a cave. It was a cave/tomb. Like I said, many different shapes and sizes. There were 28 other skeletons as well, and it appears they had a 6-stage burial. There were beautiful decorations to suggest such, but something that really stood out here were the 86 tortoise bodies discovered in the corner of the tomb. What was going on here? What did we miss? I have FOMO, but I'm not sure why. Was this an ancient feast or a long-lost sacrifice? Either way, poor guys. Number 5, the Sitting Man. Okay, of all the tombs to find, this one would be the most horrifying. This would be so jarring to stumble across, okay? Buckle up. Back in 2005, researchers found a Mayan tomb in Honduras from the 5th century, okay? It's a long time ago. And the body inside was not lying down. It wasn't a pile of bones pointing east or west this time. Rather, it was in a chair, sitting up. Like a villain from Zelda. How scary would that be? I mean, it's beautiful, but that's jarring to stumble across, you know what I mean? Whoever was the first person to look and see that, brave soul, that's all I'm saying. The body found, it appears to be an elite member of the Mayan Empire. He passed away, we think, around 650 AD. Yeah, the guy gets propped up in a chair. That's awesome. His legs were crossed and he was rocking jade jewelry. This was very royal. And the tomb itself was actually upright as well. It's common fear to be buried alive, but in this case, you'd have plenty of room. You'd be like, oh, we're good. These types of tombs are actually quite rare to find, but the fact that this one is also in great condition and there's somebody sitting cross-legged inside, double rare. Here we go. Number 4, the Terracotta Army. This is, I mean, talk about curses. Oh boy. The tomb of Emperor Qi Shi Huang, China's first emperor. Okay, in this tomb, we can find 8,000 statues. This one is quite loaded. I almost made this number 1 just out of principle. But they all have unique carvings on their face, as if to suggest these are all custom statues, all representing an individual from that long ago. All 8,000 of them. The emperor believed that after he had passed away, he would have the spirits of his enemies to face, so he wanted to be prepared even after death. The emperor decided to close the tomb before the workers even had a chance to get out. It was horrible. He was worried his enemies had found out, so there's of course lots of statues down there and a lot of dark history, just all piled into one. I would never go near this. I think the Mummy 3 is about this tomb. It didn't do so well, but yeah. Scary concept. Number 3, message from Egyptian afterlife. We're all curious what happens after you die, of course, but nobody celebrated the end of your days like ancient Egyptians did, right? It's beautiful. Like I've mentioned before on this channel, they would have these fake painted doors. They would leave valuables. Any new tomb that we discover provides more hints as to what lies beyond, right? An ancient necropolis was discovered only a few years ago, again in Egypt. It contains dozens of coffins and a necklace that holds a message from the afterlife. Okay, now we're talking. This site is around 2,000 years old and they're in the process of excavating it as we speak, as I mansplain to you about these tombs. But so far the tombs and artifacts found, officials think, belong to an ancient priestess. A message from the afterlife is pretty spectacular, but what does it say exactly? Well, we're still waiting to find out. These things take time, you know? Number 2, mythical carvings. Back in 2014, a 1700-year-old cemetery was discovered along the Silk Road, which are these ancient ancient highways rather, connecting China and the Roman Empire. Now in the city of Kucha, now in northwest China, the cemetery was found along with 10 ancient tombs, one of which was referred to as M3. M3 didn't have any haunting messages this time around, but it did contain several carvings of mythical creatures. Creatures that were once alive? Question mark. There's the white tiger of the west, the black turtle of the north, the vermilion bird of the south, so far so lovely, and then there's the azure dragon of the east, a little bigger, a little bit more mighty. These mythical carvings represent different seasons and the heavens, but could the other 6 carvings mean depictions of hell? Probably, possibly. And finally, number 1, the Ring of Sekenianis. One ring to rule them all. And by rule, I mean curse you and your entire family. Don't touch this. This is why you don't steal from ancient tombs. Has to be number 1. This 12-gram gold ring, for starters, looks beautiful, and secondly, it's massive. Its diameter was 25 millimeters, so unless you were wearing some sort of infinity gauntlet, she's probably gonna fall off your little Jack Skellington fingers, you know what I mean? The ring had first been found in 1785. A farmer was plowing a field in Silchester Village, a village west of London known for its grim history, because in 45 AD, ancient Romans invaded that site, and come the 7th century, it was completely abandoned. And probably pretty cursed. The ring was mighty and even had an inscription on it, a Latin inscription, of course. It read, Senequian vivas Indium. And when 1929 rolled around, new details surfaced, or resurfaced rather. The data from the ring matched an excavation that was done in the early 1900s less than 100 miles away, in a place called Lydney. That's where this ring is from. At the same site, however, a tablet was found recalling the Celtic god of healing and hunting, and how his favorite ring got stolen. I'm connecting some stories here. Uh-oh, I may have stolen something I shouldn't have. If this rings a bell, yes, Lord of the Rings was inspired by this exact legend. The tablet also says, may he who bears the name of Senequianus not have health until he brings the ring back to the Temple of Nodens. Yeah, let's get that ring back ASAP Rocky. That would be great. I'll be a lot quicker than Lord of the Rings. I'll be a lot quicker than 3 movies. I'll tell you that. Where's this temple? I'll put it in my Uber right now. I'm on my way.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the Knife-Armed Man. In 2018, while researchers were excavating a 1,200 to 1,400-year-old necropolis in northern Italy, they made a gruesome discovery that led to us learning a super interesting story of someone who lived all those years ago. Inside this necropolis, there were the remains of a man, but what set him apart from the others is that he had a knife blade prosthetic arm. Further analysis of his bones showed that his arm had been removed via blunt force trauma. Normally, all those years ago, the wounds would have killed you. If not from the loss of blood, then from infection, because of course this was a time before antibiotics, but somehow this man managed to survive it all, and in doing that, he made himself the scariest prosthetic limb I've ever heard of. He replaced his missing hand with a long knife buckled to his arm with leather straps. In our number 9 spot today, we have KV55. This is a tomb that is referred to by a number rather than a name because we don't actually know who lies inside of this tomb. While this tomb had its modern discovery in 1907, we still haven't quite found the answers surrounding this mystery. To make things a little more eerie, while the walls of the actual tomb are bare, which is bizarre, as you walk down the steps towards the tomb, you'll notice there are some markings leading up to it. You'll see inscribed on the wall of the entrance the words which can be translated to, "The evil one shall not live again." If this wasn't enough to give an unsettling feeling, the coffin inside of the tomb has been desecrated, with part of the face having been removed. So all in all, we don't know a lot about what's going on down there, but it doesn't seem good. In our number 8 spot today, we have Man E. Okay, so normally when you're out in the field searching for mummies and tombs and all of that sort of archaeological business in Egypt, the containers or vessels that the past people are put in are decorated or contain some sort of drawings or writings. So in 1886, when Gaston Maspero, who was the head of Egyptian antiquities, came across a plain burial box, he was a little intrigued as to what could be inside. This box had no information as to who the person inside may or may not be, but the corpse inside was wrapped in sheepskin, which was apparently considered unclean by the ancient Egyptians. When unwrapped, it was revealed that this person had both their hands and their feet bound, and as he looked towards the face of this person, he found what appeared to be a screaming face looking back at him. Back in 1886, we didn't have the same amount of information as we do now, so of course this quickly freaked researchers out and led to everyone believing that this person must have been tortured to death. How scary that must have been. But luckily, with the things we now know, we have a much less horrific answer, thankfully. If the jaw of a person isn't strapped shut, when a body is mummified, the jaw naturally falls open, thus this horrible screaming expression. The real mystery that remains is how this mummy, who clearly wasn't considered a person of royalty, came to be buried alongside kings and queens. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Black Granite Sarcophagus. In 2018, archaeologists in Egypt found a massive black granite sarcophagus in Alexandria, Egypt that dated all the way back to 2,000 years ago. Rumors immediately started swirling about what this sarcophagus might have contained, but the best way to find out? Well, you have to open it, of course. Instead of some crazy curse being unleashed, the first thing that escaped this tomb when opened was a horrible, unbearable smell. Apparently it was so bad that the site had to be evacuated for a while before they could return to finish opening it up. When they finally were able to completely lift the lid, they found a red-brown like sewage water flooding the bottom, which is likely where that horrible smell was coming from. Other than all that gross stuff, inside the sarcophagus were the bones of 3 people. Unfortunately, the mummies did not end up being well preserved, so only the skeletal remains were still intact. It is believed that the people inside may have been soldiers from the time of pharaohs. This is believed because one of the skulls had a crack in it from an arrow. There was a bust found along with the tomb, but unfortunately, due to time past, it has been weathered beyond recognition, but that is not the only way researchers can find out where the soldiers are from and what time period they lived in. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Inca mummies. In 1976, researchers found 2 mummies at a burial site in northern Chile. These 2 corpses belonged to 2 young women who were the victims of human ritual sacrifice. It is likely that the sacrifice they were a part of was one that was carried out by the Inca to commemorate either historical or political events, or as a response to a natural disaster. The mummies were found wearing silver ornaments, and they were surrounded by ceramic vessels, and they were wearing red robes. The red in the Inca clothing was often created using hematite or other iron oxides, but upon further inspection of these mummies, it was revealed that their their red clothing held something much more dangerous. The dye used for their clothing contained cinnabar, which is a mineral rich in mercury. This was often used in the ancient world as a pigment for makeup, clothing, and painting, but handling it leads to mercury poisoning. What is strange is that researchers believe that the toxicity of cinnabar wasn't known in ancient Peru, so we aren't exactly sure why they used it in the first place, but it's thought it might have been used as protection against grave robbers. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Phaleron Delta Necropolis. In 2016, during the construction of a new library and opera house in Athens, crews accidentally stumbled upon this necropolis, which is a cemetery that is the final resting place of more than 1,500 citizens from ancient Greece. And while this is most definitely an eerie discovery and a reminder of our own morality, the horrifying discovery came when they found a small chamber within this one, and inside there were more than 80 skeletons that all had their hands shackled above their heads. How's that for a horrifying discovery? I don't know, I'm gonna say pretty good. Each of these skeletons belonged to people who died young and healthy, and while the exact cause of death is yet to be determined, all signs are pointing to some kind of mass execution. Right now, the best theory as to who these people may have been is that they may be some of the people who were a part of a coup in 632 BC that was led by Cylon against Athens. It's just strange that even after these people passed, they didn't unshackle them, but that might just be a mystery destined to stay a secret. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Ancient Curse. Alright, so of course we have to have a good old-fashioned curse that was unleashed from inside of a tomb. Okay, that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but there really was a curse found on the inside of a tomb. This tomb was the tomb of a pharaoh's official who is thought to have lived around 4,000 years ago during Egypt's 6th dynasty. It was an above-ground tomb that was shaped like a rectangular box. Inside of the tomb, they found a curse inscribed that warned anyone who dared to disturb it. The curse, roughly translated, states anything a trespasser, quote, might do against this, my tomb, the same shall be done to your property. It then goes on to warn the trespasser of his knowledge of spells and secret magic, and it threatens to fill impure intruders with a fear of seeing ghosts. These kinds of curses have been found in other tombs, and while they certainly are nothing like the ones depicted in horror movies about mummies, it might still be a little unnerving to those unearthing this discovery. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Lothagam North Pillar Site. One of the most incredible archaeological finds in Kenya led to well, it wasn't exactly a horrifying discovery, but it certainly was unexpected. Around 5,000 years ago, a tribe of herders paused by a lake in what is now Kenya in order to bury their dead. This ended up turning into one of the most massive and monumental construction projects Africa had ever seen, which is no easy feat. For 450 years, they dug into the bedrock, piled up slabs of sandstone, and buried their dead for generations with ritual ceremonies, and this led to what researchers now consider the earliest and largest monumental cemetery in Eastern Africa. Here's the one kind of unexpected thing that they found here at this site, though. Along with the bodies of those who had passed, researchers also found 405 gerbil teeth at the site. As it turns out, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for this, and it's because they were used to make a headpiece for just one of those who had passed away. This site might not be as large and tall as some of the other monuments like the pyramids in Giza, but what makes them the most remarkable is that this site was made by the people for the people. Not for emperors or kings and queens, it was for tribe members of every age and gender buried alongside each other. In our number 2 spot today, we have the tomb of Hatshepsut. This was the 5th pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, and she was the 2nd historically confirmed female pharaoh. She was an incredibly interesting person who we really could talk about all day, but we are here talking about tombs, so let's cut to when hers was found and unearthed. There were a few interesting things found within her tomb, but the real horrors came after when they began to examine her remains. They were actually able to find a cause of death for her and can actually attribute it to something she possessed. They found benzoprene carcinogenic skin lotion with the pharaoh, and it is believed that this gave her bone cancer. It is likely that she poisoned herself accidentally while just trying to soothe her skin. Being diagnosed with something like that with the help of modern medicine is already a horrible and painful and scary thing. I couldn't even imagine having to go through it all these years ago without any kind of treatment. In our number 1 spot today, we have this ancient mystery. Okay, so this is one of the coolest things I've ever heard, and it has me rethinking my entire career. Maybe I do want to be an archaeologist after all. Basically, researchers have found a 1300-year-old Chinese mystery, and where did they find it? In a Tomb Raider shaft. This feels like a Hollywood blockbuster, and somehow it's just real, ancient life. While excavating a tomb in China, the team discovered the skeleton of a young man that was riddled with wounds, giving clues as to how he died. The man is estimated to have been about 25 years old, and it is thought that he was harmed and then thrown into the Tomb Raider shaft while still alive, which is absolutely gruesome. It is believed this crime took place between 640 and 680 AD. It appears as though he wasn't a thief because the shaft had begun to be refilled with soil by the time of his death, so we really aren't sure why this young man met such a cruel fate. As a true crime enthusiast, this is absolutely fascinating, and I wish we could find some answers to bring this guy's story full circle. Sometimes, though, these things are just destined to stay a secret hidden in the past.